Tony Harding from Harding Knives. A year since my last video when I said I would do one every week. Um, it's been a crazy year. Until 3 weeks ago I hadn't taken a single day off for that year. It's been 7 days a week and I was kind of getting a bit strange. So I started going out again and realised that business had caused me to lose touch with this, which is where my knife business stemmed from in the first place. It's all about this, and my wife's convinced me that this is as much an important part of my job as, making knives, doing all of the online selling and what have you, which isn't a bad thing to hear. Not many people hear you really need to get out in the woods and spend some time camping and doing all the stuff you love because it's part of your job. Well, here we are. Yeah, I think I lost touch for a while. I've had a question, a couple of people have said, and I had some very nice reviews, and a couple of people have said, why am I not more famous? Well, I do know a number of knife makers that went down the social media road, did tons and tons of videos, got famous, and deserved it, of course, because they're very good. But then kind of regretted it, because they have to close their order books and let people down. So I've always been more of a measured approach to progress in that particular direction. I don't need it. I have a fairly good customer base anyway, but I am going to do it. I am going to go further down that road, but not without the plan, of course, that I have to increase my output rather than close down order books, and I think that's a mistake people have made, although they didn't know what was going to happen, I think, with YouTube and the business that it puts their way. Anyway, I'm going to do that. I've left behind completely now contract work. I do a couple of hours a week really now, so I'm going to be dependent on social media for my income. So what have I been doing lately? I made myself a knife. People that know me will think that that's quite funny, because I think probably 30 times in the last year I've made a knife, and for myself. Then I get a phone call or an email saying, what have I got for sale? And it's bye-bye knife. But this is quite interesting because somebody sent me a special anniversary Ray Mears Woodlaw bushcraft knife, and I restored it for them. It was really in a terrible way, and they sent it to me so that I could restore it. And while I was restoring it, I measured it and studied it quite carefully, because I thought it was a very small knife, but it had a wonderful feel to it. I think my hands aren't too big. They're odd, but they're not too big. Perhaps slightly less than average, I don't know. But it had a wonderful feel to it, even though it was such a small knife, and it's just a 4-inch, slightly over a 4-inch blade, and for less than 4.5-inch handle. So I took all the measurements and got to know the shape and took photographs and decided to make a copy for myself. Now, as usual, I make one for myself, I get inquiries, but fortunately for me, as I was leaving the workshop, I bashed it against the corner of the vise and I took a big chunk out of the blade. So that was it. I couldn't sell that. You can't really put a knife, once it's got a handle, successfully back on the grinder. It just doesn't work for me. So I brought it back to pristine edge on bench stones. But it didn't, by then, it didn't really have that nice mirror finish on the bevel. So it really was my knife at that point. And there it is. I hope that I'm not going through all this and you can't see it. But yeah, typical 4mm 01 steel. Very narrow at this back end, and I really like it. And it's another strange thing that happened. I buy these fire steels all the time. Well, actually, I don't. I normally buy the 10mm diameter one, which is that long. Not much longer than that, 3 inches or whatever, 3.5 inches. But I saw one that said 12mm diameter, and I thought I'd get that. I expected pretty much the same thing, slightly fatter, but this monster came in the mail. I put the oak handle on. This monster came in the mail, and so I decided I needed to design something new to cope with it. So I made this sheath with the steel on this side instead of this side of the knife. And you know, though I say so myself, I think it's worked. So, and that's my knife for today, out in the woods. I've only come out here to talk to you, put up my shelter. And the two knives I brought with me was my Woodlaw, which I've had, this is my 19th year now with this Woodlaw, and my knife. And though I say so myself, if you were to use these blindfold, you wouldn't tell them apart. Mine performs every bit as good as the Woodlaw. Not that you would, not that you would use one blindfold, of course, but you get what I mean. I've focused a bit on leatherwork in the last couple of weeks, and I love doing the leatherwork. So that's my knife from now on. This is the knife I will be using every time I'm out. The one I made for me, at long last, and haven't been able to sell it on. If anybody wants it, no. So there we go, with that new design. I'm quite pleased about that, because I could add something on this side as well, and give a sheath with a slightly different, just slightly different. There's only so many things you can do with sheaths. Slightly different patterns, colours and decoration, really. It's a bit like the guy who designs wheels. Well, they've got to be round, you know. You're limited as to what you can do. This is one of those sheaths where I put an oldie worldy map on, and this is kind of a transfer system that we developed at home, and that is ink. It is absolutely permanent. I've tried to remove it with acetone, thinners, water, and it doesn't come off. If you don't get it right, you throw it away, really. So it's a very, very permanent fixture, is this ink. It's almost like tattooed leather, and I love it. I love it. And I can do any design, any quote, any name or phrase on a sheath. So I'm going to have my dinner now. I didn't come out here just to do the video. Perhaps I should do a video on this. I preserve my own food. This is some curry sauce. I'm going to get some sausages and stuff on the fire shortly. This is my own curry sauce, and I can and preserve, pressure canning, preserve food all the time at home. We've got a couple of 100 jars of all kinds of sauces, beans, mince, chicken, potatoes, vegetables, you name it. And I opened a soup the other day that was 4 years old, and it was just gorgeous. And I need to get into this in front of the camera a little bit more. So I can't remember what I've said, but yeah, I think I'm going to get back in the woods a little bit more. Things have changed, business has changed, and I'm going to be bringing this knife. And I really like this knife. I hope that my customers get attached to the knives they buy from me the way I have with this. I'm really, really pleased with it. And it's getting a bit messy because it does stuff, which is fine. It's necessary. So, speak to you soon. I hope. Bye-bye.